I'm Camelia Torres, 21 years old, and I thought I knew what home meant. I'd just driven 3 hours from my university in Seattle to my hometown of Tacoma, Washington for winter break, my heart light with the anticipation of seeing my family, of sleeping in my old bed, of breathing in the familiar scent of my mom's cooking. But as I pulled into the driveway of my childhood home, that anticipation turned to ice in my veins. A for sale sign was staked into the front lawn, its bold red letters glaring at me like a warning. The windows were bare, no curtains, no lights, no signs of life. 3 black garbage bags sat on the porch, abandoned, like they were waiting for someone to claim them. I stepped out of my car, my breath catching in my throat, the cold December air biting at my cheeks as I approached the house that had once been my sanctuary. I peeked into one of the garbage bags, my hands trembling as I untied the knot, and what I saw made my stomach drop. My clothes, sweaters I'd left behind, my favorite scarf, mixed with my books, my high school yearbook, fragments of the life I'd left here when I went to college. I looked through the window, pressing my face against the cold glass, and saw nothing but emptiness. No furniture, no photos on the walls, just a hollow shell where my memories used to live. I pulled out my phone, my knuckles white as I gripped it, and called my Uncle Marcus, my dad's brother, the only person I could think to reach. "What do you mean you don't have the keys?" I said, my voice shaking as I paced the porch, the neighbor across the street watching me from his porch, his stare heavy with curiosity. "The house is empty, that can't be right." Uncle Marcus's voice was hesitant, heavy with something he didn't want to say. "Your father said you should have called first," he said. "They moved last week." "Didn't they tell you?" "No," I said, the word barely making it past the lump in my throat, my chest tightening with a pain I couldn't name. "They didn't tell me anything." I hung up, my hand shaking as I dialed my father, each ring stretching into an eternity, my heart pounding louder with every second. "Hello?" His voice was flat, emotionless, like he was answering a telemarketer, not his daughter. "Dad," I said, my voice breaking. "The house is empty. There are garbage bags with my stuff on the porch." "What's going on?" A pause, long and heavy, then his words, cold and final. "We moved. You're an adult now, deal with it." The line went dead, the silence that followed louder than any scream. I called back, straight to voicemail. I tried my mom's phone, then my younger sister Elena's. Nothing, no answer, just the hollow echo of rejection. I stood there, the sunset casting long shadows across the front yard, the cedar tree I'd planted with my dad when I was 9 still standing tall, its branches reaching toward a house that no longer belonged to us. I'd sent part of my scholarship money home every month, $500 to help with bills, to ease their burden while I studied biology at university, maintaining a 3.8 GPA while working part-time at a campus cafe. I'd been the responsible one, the one who never caused trouble, the one who always put family first. And this was my reward, erased from their lives, no warning, no goodbye, not even a forwarding address. I didn't cry, not then. Instead, I picked up those garbage bags, loaded them into my car, and drove to a motel down the street, the weight of their betrayal pressing down on me like a physical force. That night, I decided, if they wanted to erase me, I'd erase them right back. I'd cut all ties, and I'd build a life they could never take away. I checked into the motel, the neon sign flickering outside the window, casting a harsh glow over the small, sterile room. The bedspread was scratchy, the air stale with the scent of old cigarettes, but I barely noticed as I laid out my salvaged possessions on the bed, each item a shard of the life I thought I'd had. A biology textbook, dog-eared from late-night study sessions. A winter coat I'd left behind, still smelling faintly of my mom's lavender laundry detergent. A cracked picture frame with a photo of my family at the lake 2 summers ago. Me, my parents, Richard and Sophia, and my sister Elena, all smiling, all liars. I stared at that photo, the glass splintered across our faces, and felt the first crack in the dam I'd built to hold back my emotions. How could they do this to me? How could they just leave? I'd grown up believing family was everything. My parents had immigrated from Colombia before I was born, building a life in Tacoma through hard work. My dad a mechanic, my mom a seamstress. "Family first," they'd say over dinner, their voices heavy with the weight of their sacrifices. "We came here with nothing, so you could have everything. Education is your future." I'd taken those words to heart, studying while my friends partied, interning at a local environmental nonprofit while others took summer jobs at the mall. My acceptance to university on a biology scholarship was supposed to be their pride, the first step toward the future they dreamed for me. But Elena, my 18-year-old sister, was different. She skipped school, hung out with a rough crowd, even got caught stealing once. Yet my parents always forgave her, always supported her. "She's finding her way," they'd say, their voices soft with understanding they never showed me. Maybe that's why their abandonment hit me so hard. I'd been the good daughter, the one who never asked for anything, and they'd discarded me while keeping her close. I sat on the edge of the bed, the photo in my hands, my mind racing with questions I couldn't answer. Why didn't they tell me? Why didn't they give me a chance to say goodbye, to pack my own things, to understand? I'd sent them $500 every month, money I'd earned pouring coffee and smiling through exhaustion, money I thought was helping them survive. I called every week, checking in, asking about their day, telling them about mine. And they'd said nothing, not a word about moving, about selling the house, about leaving me behind. The betrayal cut deeper than I could have imagined, a knife twisting in my chest with every memory of their smiles, their promises, their lies. I wanted to cry, to scream, to demand answers, but I didn't. Instead, I made a decision, one that felt as final as the click of that motel door behind me. I picked up my phone, my hands steady despite the storm inside me, and blocked their numbers, my dad, my mom, Elena, even Uncle Marcus, anyone who might try to pull me back into their web of excuses. If they wanted me gone, I'd make it permanent. I'd cut them out of my life, just as they'd cut me out of theirs. I wouldn't call, I wouldn't beg, I wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing me break. I'd build something new, something they couldn't touch, something that was mine. The motel room felt smaller, the walls closing in, but I felt a spark of resolve ignite inside me, a fire that would carry me through the days to come. I lay back on the bed, staring at the cracked ceiling, the photo still clutched in my hand. I didn't sleep that night, but I didn't need to. I had a plan, a purpose, and for the first time in hours, I felt like I could breathe. The next morning, I sat in the motel's tiny lobby, a cup of stale coffee in my hands, the bitter taste matching the bitterness in my heart. I couldn't go back to the dorms. Winter break meant they were closed for another week, and I had nowhere else to turn. My friends were scattered across the state, visiting their own families, and I couldn't bear the thought of explaining what had happened, of seeing pity in their eyes. I needed a plan, a place to stay, a way to keep moving forward when everything I'd known had been ripped away. I scrolled through my contacts, my thumb hovering over a name I hadn't called in weeks. Professor Abigail Harper, my ecology professor, who'd become a mentor over the past year. She'd always told me I could reach out if I needed her, but I'd never imagined I'd need her like this. I dialed her number, my heart pounding as the phone rang, my voice trembling when she answered. "Professor Harper?" "It's Camelia," I said, trying to keep my tone steady. I need help." I explained everything, the empty house, the garbage bags, my family's silence, the way they'd left me without a word. "They just left?" she asked, her voice thick with disbelief, the same shock I'd felt still echoing in her tone. "Yes," I said, my voice cracking, the emotion finally breaking through. "I don't know what to do. I can't go back to the dorms, and I couldn't finish, the weight of it all crashing down on me." "Listen to me, Camelia," she said, her voice firm but kind. "Come stay with me until the dorms reopen. We'll figure this out together." Professor Harper lived in a cozy crafts house on the outskirts of Seattle, the kind of place that smelled like old books and cedar, with a garden out back and a tabby cat named Juniper who greeted me with a curious sniff. She gave me her guest room, a small space with a quilt-covered bed and a window overlooking the snow-dusted garden, and handed me a key. No time limit, she said, her eyes warm with understanding. Focus on your studies, on yourself. You're not alone. I nodded, the lump in my throat making it hard to speak, the kindness of her gesture a lifeline I hadn't known I needed. That winter break, instead of resting, I threw myself into my research, diving into a project on urban environmental justice that I'd been working on for class. Professor Harper helped me refine my ideas, sitting with me over cups of chamomile tea, her presence a steady anchor in the storm of my emotions. One evening, as we sat by her fireplace, the flames casting a warm glow over the room, she looked at me, her expression serious. "Channel it, Camelia," she said, her voice soft but firm. "Your pain, your anger, it can fuel something powerful. The best change comes from personal experience." I thought about the garbage bags, the photo of my family at the lake, the milestones they'd celebrated only to discard me like trash. That night, I made another decision. I'd use this pain, this betrayal, to build something meaningful, something that could help others who'd been left behind, just like me. I blocked out the memories of my family, focusing instead on the future, on the work I could do, the difference I could make. The guest room became my sanctuary, the creak of the old house a comfort, and for the first time since I'd found my home empty, I felt a glimmer of hope, a sense that I could rebuild, that I could be more than what they'd left behind. Winter break ended, and I returned to university, the dorms a familiar refuge after the chaos of the past week. But I wasn't the same Camelia who'd left for break. I was harder, more focused, determined to turn my pain into purpose. Professor Harper had connected me with a spring internship at Green Path Solutions, a nonprofit focused on environmental justice, specifically addressing pollution in low-income communities. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd been discarded by my family, left to fend for myself, and now I was working to help others who'd been abandoned by systems meant to protect them. I threw myself into the internship, starting with basic tasks, filing reports, scheduling meetings, but quickly proving my worth with my attention to detail and my ability to connect with the communities we served. My supervisor, Clara Bennett, noticed my knack for listening, for understanding the stories behind the data. "You have something special, Camelia," she said one day after I'd spent an hour talking with a mother whose children were suffering from asthma due to a nearby factory's emissions. "You really hear people." I was assigned to assist with community outreach, meeting families in Tacoma's most polluted neighborhoods, listening to their struggles. Children who couldn't play outside, elders with respiratory issues, parents who felt powerless against the corporations poisoning their air. Their stories hit me hard, resonating with my own sense of abandonment, my own fight to be seen, to be heard. One evening, after a long day of interviews, I stayed late at the office, organizing notes, my desk a mess of papers and coffee cups. Clara found me there at 8 p.m., her expression a mix of concern and admiration. "Burning the midnight oil?" she asked, leaning against the doorframe. "These families have nowhere to turn," I said, my voice tight with frustration. "The factory offers them air purifiers as compensation, but that's not enough. It doesn't fix the problem. They're still breathing poison." Clara sighed, her eyes reflecting the same frustration I felt. "The system's broken," she said. "But what are you going to do about it?" That question stayed with me, echoing in my mind as I drove back to the dorms, the city lights blurring past my window. What could I, a second-year biology student with an internship, possibly do? The answer came a week later during a university seminar on student innovation grants, seed money for projects addressing community needs, with a deadline just 10 days away. I stayed up 3 nights straight, drafting a proposal for a community air quality initiative called Clean Air Collective, aimed at helping low-income families fight for cleaner air through education, advocacy, and legal support. Clara helped me refine the environmental aspects, and Professor Harper reviewed the final application, her feedback sharp and encouraging. "This is powerful, Camelia," she said, handing me the revised draft. "It's personal, but it's bigger than you. It's for everyone who's been overlooked." I submitted the proposal, my heart racing with a mix of hope and fear, knowing this could be the start of something real, something that could make a difference. As I waited to hear back, I focused on my internship, on the families I was helping, on the life I was building without my family's shadow. I'd blocked their numbers, but I knew they'd try to reach me eventually. I just didn't expect how soon or how much their attempts would test the walls I'd built around my heart. I was done with them, but they weren't done with me, and I'd soon learn just how far they'd go to pull me back into their lives. A month after submitting the grant proposal, I received the first call from my family, 6 months after they'd abandoned me. It was a voicemail from my mom, Sophia, her voice soft, almost pleading. "Camelia, we're worried about you. Please call us." No apology, no explanation, just an expectation that I'd come running back, as if nothing had happened. I didn't call back, but I saved the message, a reminder of their audacity, their refusal to acknowledge what they'd done. 3 days later, another voicemail, this time from my dad, Richard, his tone sharper. "This silent treatment is childish, Camelia. We're your family." I saved that one too, the anger simmering beneath my skin, but I didn't respond. Calls increased. Sometimes my mom, sometimes my dad, occasionally Elena, their tones shifting from demanding to pleading, but never once did they mention the house, the garbage bags, the way they'd left me with nothing. I ignored them, focusing on my work at Green Path Solutions, on the families I was helping, on the grant I was waiting to hear about. But their persistence started to wear on me, each voicemail a crack in the walls I'd built, a reminder of the family I'd once loved, the family I'd thought loved me. One Tuesday afternoon, I was meeting with a father named Miguel, whose son had been hospitalized twice due to air pollution from a nearby warehouse. We were discussing his options, filing a complaint with the city, joining a class action lawsuit, when my phone rang, the number unfamiliar but with Tacoma's area code. I silenced it, apologizing to Miguel, but it rang again, insistent, relentless. "I'm sorry, I need to take this," I said, stepping outside the small office we used for meetings, my heart pounding as I answered. "Clean Air Collective, this is Camelia," I said, my voice professional despite the dread pooling in my stomach. "Camelia, is that you?" It was my mom's voice, and my stomach dropped, the sound of her words a punch to the gut. "How did you get this number?" I asked, my voice cold, my grip on the phone tightening. "It's on your website," she said, her tone a mix of relief and urgency. "Why haven't you returned our calls?" "We've been worried sick." I took a deep breath, steadying myself, the anger rising like a tide. "This is my workplace," I said, my voice low, controlled. "Please don't call here again." Her voice broke, a sob escaping her. "We're your parents, Camelia. We have the right." I cut her off, the words spilling out before I could stop them. "You lost that right when you put my belongings in garbage bags and sold our house without telling me. I'm not doing this now," she pleaded, her voice trembling. "Your dad made a mistake. We had financial troubles, the house was being foreclosed on. We were ashamed." For a moment, I felt a crack in my resolve, a flicker of doubt. Financial troubles? Foreclosure? They'd never mentioned money problems, not once in all the calls I'd made, all the money I'd sent. "If you were in trouble, you could have told me," I said, my voice softer, the hurt bleeding through. "I was already sending money home, I would have helped." She sighed, the sound heavy with regret. "Your dad wouldn't allow it. His pride, you know how he is." I did know, my dad's pride was a wall I'd never been able to break through, a force that had shaped our family for as long as I could remember. But pride didn't justify what they'd done, didn't erase the pain of finding my life in garbage bags. "I need to get back to work," I said firmly. "Please respect my boundaries." I hung up before she could say more, my hands trembling as I set the phone down, the conversation unearthing emotions I thought I'd buried. Anger, yes, but also a lingering sense of responsibility, a guilt I didn't want to feel. That call left me shaken, my mom's words echoing in my mind as I returned to Miguel, apologizing for the interruption, trying to focus on his case. But I couldn't shake the doubt she'd planted, financial troubles, foreclosure, shame. What if there was more to the story? What if they'd been desperate, if they'd had no choice? I pushed the thoughts aside, focusing on my work, on the Clean Air Collective, on the families who needed me now. But the next day, against my better judgment, I did something I'd resisted for months. I searched for my family online, hoping to find answers, to understand why they'd done what they did. What I found shattered any sympathy I'd started to feel. The truth, a bitter pill I hadn't been prepared to swallow. A Facebook post from my mom, dated just 2 weeks after they'd moved, showed her, my dad, and Elena smiling in front of a new house, a modest but tidy place with a small garden out front. Caption read, "Fresh start. So grateful." My heart sank, the anger flaring hot and fierce as I scrolled through more posts. Elena at a community college orientation, my dad fixing up the new house, my mom baking with neighbors. There had been no foreclosure, no financial crisis, just a decision to leave me behind, to start over without me. They were living their lives, building new connections, celebrating milestones, while I'd been left to pick up the pieces of the life they'd discarded. The betrayal cut deeper than ever, the realization that they'd lied, again, fueling a rage I couldn't contain. I closed my laptop, my hands shaking, the room spinning as I tried to process the depth of their deceit. Meanwhile, the Clean Air Collective was gaining traction. The university awarded me a $20,000 innovation grant to launch the initiative, a victory I celebrated with Professor Harper and Clara, not my family. We set up a small office in a shared space at Green Path Solutions, recruiting volunteers, other biology students, a few law students interested in environmental justice, and began working with families to file complaints, organize community meetings, and push for stricter regulations on local polluters. Each family we helped, each child who could breathe a little easier, felt like a personal victory, a way to reclaim the power my family had taken from me. But their calls didn't stop. 120, 150, 200, the voicemails piling up, their tones shifting from pleading to casual, as if we were having a normal conversation. "Elena's taking art classes," my mom said in April. "The neighbors invited us to a barbecue," my dad reported in May. These updates infuriated me more than their demands, their normalcy a slap in the face after what they'd done. I ignored them, focusing on my work, on the life I was building, but their persistence was a constant reminder of the family I'd lost, the family I'd never really had. I was done with their lies, their excuses, their attempts to pull me back into their orbit. I'd built something meaningful from the wreckage of their abandonment, and I wasn't going to let them take that away from me. The office at Green Path became my sanctuary, the hum of the city outside, a reminder of the world I was fighting for, a world where no one else would be left behind like I had been. I was Camelia, 21, a fighter, a survivor, and I was just getting started. My family might have thought they could erase me, but I was writing my own story now, one they'd never be a part of. As the Clean Air Collective grew, so did my confidence, my sense of purpose. We'd helped 15 families file complaints against polluters, organized 3 community workshops on air quality, and were working on a proposal for a citywide air monitoring program. But my family's attempts to reconnect were relentless, their voicemails a constant intrusion, a reminder of the past I was trying to leave behind. I was preparing for a major presentation to the Evergreen Foundation, a local environmental grant organization, when I received a call that would change everything. A call that would reveal a secret my family had kept from me, a secret that explained so much and hurt even more. It was a Tuesday afternoon, and I was in the office reviewing data for the presentation when my phone rang, an unfamiliar number with Tacoma's area code. I answered cautiously, my heart sinking as I recognized the voice on the other end. "Camelia, it's Mrs. Larson, your old neighbor," she said, her tone hesitant but warm. "I hope it's okay that I called. Your sister gave me your number. She said you might not answer if you saw their names." My defenses rose immediately, the anger flaring at the thought of Elena handing out my number. "If this is about reconnecting with my family," I started, but she interrupted, her voice urgent. No, it's not that. It's about the house, your old house. Someone broke in last night. The police think they were looking for valuables, but the place is empty. Your dad asked me to check if it was you." I nearly laughed at the absurdity, the bitterness sharp on my tongue. "I haven't been back since that day, Mrs. Larson," I said, my voice cold. "I don't even have keys anymore." She sighed, the sound heavy with understanding. That's what I told him. But there's something else. The intruder left something behind. An envelope with your name on it. The police gave it to me since I'm watching the property. My heart skipped, a chill running down my spine. "What does it say?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "I haven't opened it," she said. "It's addressed to you, but it looks official. There's a law firm's name on it." Official mail at my old address? I'd updated my address months ago. No one should be sending me anything there. "Can you open it?" I asked, my hands trembling as I grabbed a pen. "Just tell me what it says." I heard paper tearing, then a long silence, the seconds stretching into eternity. "Mrs. Larson?" I prompted, my heart pounding. It's about your grandmother's estate," she said finally, her voice slow, careful. "Your paternal grandmother in Colombia?" My grandmother had died when I was 12. I barely remembered her, just vague memories of her warm smile, her garden full of flowers. "What about her estate?" I asked, my mind racing. "It says you've inherited property in Medellin," she read, her voice steady. "And there's a bank statement, Camelia. It shows a balance of over $350,000. My mind reeled, the room spinning as I tried to process her words. "That can't be right," I said, my voice shaking. "She didn't have that kind of money." Mrs. Larson paused, paper shuffling. "The letter says the property was developed after her death, apartment buildings. Your portion is the proceeds from the sale of 3 units. It was finalized last February. Last February, 1 month before my family abandoned me. Timing hit me like a punch, the pieces falling into place with a sickening clarity. They'd known about my inheritance, known I had this money coming, and they'd still left me behind, still put my belongings in garbage bags, still erased me from their lives. The betrayal was deeper than I'd ever imagined, their deceit a wound that cut to the bone. I scribbled down the law firm's contact information, my hand shaking as I thanked Mrs. Larson and hung up, the weight of this new truth pressing down on me, a truth I wasn't sure I could bear. I contacted the law firm in Medellin the next day, my voice steady despite the storm inside me, and they confirmed everything. The inheritance was real, the money was mine, and notification had been sent to my parents as my legal guardians over a year ago when I was still 20. They'd known, and they'd kept it from me, choosing to abandon me rather than tell me the truth. The funds were transferred to my account 2 days before the Evergreen Foundation presentation, $350,000 sitting there, a strange security I hadn't expected, a lifeline I didn't know I needed. But it also brought a new wave of anger, a new layer of betrayal. My family hadn't just left me, they'd hidden a future from me, a future I could have used to build something even sooner. The Evergreen presentation was scheduled for a Friday morning in June, a chance to secure $250,000 over 3 years to expand Clean Air Collective's reach across Tacoma. I arrived at the Foundation's sleek downtown office an hour early, my notes spread out on a glass table in the waiting area, my navy blazer pressed, my nerves a tangled mess. Clara arrived 15 minutes before the scheduled time, her presence a steadying force, her smile encouraging. "Ready?" she asked, adjusting her scarf. "As I'll ever be," I replied, smoothing my blazer, trying to focus on the task at hand, not the inheritance, not my family's deceit. "The board can be tough," she warned, her voice low. "But they care about impact. The focus on the families, the real change we're making." I nodded, taking a deep breath, determined to make this moment mine, to prove I was more than what my family had left behind. We were escorted into a conference room where 7 board members sat around a polished table, environmentalists, philanthropists, a city council member I recognized from the news. The Foundation's director, Evelyn Carter, greeted us warmly. "Ms. Torres, Ms. Bennett, welcome," she said, gesturing to the presentation area. We've been impressed by your proposal. Show us why Clean Air Collective deserves our support. I connected my laptop to the projector, my hands steady despite the nerves, and began outlining our journey, our impact. 15 families helped, 3 workshops, a growing movement for cleaner air. Clara added context, explaining the systemic failures we were addressing, the gaps we were filling. 20 minutes in, as I was sharing a story about Miguel's son, the door opened, an assistant whispering to Evelyn, her expression shifting to one of discomfort. "I apologize for the interruption," Evelyn said, her voice hesitant. "Miss Torres, there are some people here claiming to be your family. They're insistent on speaking with you." My heart stopped, the room tilting as her words sank in. "My family? Here? Now?" "They say it's urgent," she added, looking apologetic. "We can ask them to wait." Clara touched my arm, her voice low. "Your call, Camelia." I took a deep breath, the weight of the moment pressing down on me. After months of ignoring their calls, they tracked me down to the most important professional moment of my life, their timing a cruel twist of fate. "Please tell them I'll speak with them after the presentation," I said, my voice steady, my resolve firm. "This is too important to interrupt." Evelyn nodded, the assistant leaving to deliver my message, and I turned back to the presentation, my mind racing, my heart pounding, but my focus unwavering. I wouldn't let them derail me, not now, not ever. I finished the presentation on autopilot, my voice steady despite the emotional storm inside me, sharing the vision for Clean Air Collective's future, answering the board's questions with clarity and passion. They thanked us, promising a decision within a week, and I felt a hollow sense of accomplishment, the weight of my family's presence outside the room overshadowing the moment. "You were incredible," Clara said as we gathered our materials, her hand on my shoulder a quiet support. "Especially under the circumstances." I nodded, forcing a smile, my mind already racing toward the confrontation I knew I couldn't avoid. Outside the conference room, my parents, Richard and Sophia and Elena, waited in the reception area, their faces a mix of hope and determination, their presence a jarring intrusion into the life I'd built without them. My mom stood as I approached, her eyes red, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. "Camelia, we need to talk," she said, her voice trembling, a plea I didn't want to hear. My dad remained seated, his expression guarded, his jaw tight, while Elena hovered behind them, her gaze flickering between me and the floor. "Why are you here?" I asked, my voice cold, my arms crossed, a barrier between us. "How did you even find me?" My mom's voice was soft, almost desperate. "We saw the article about your air quality program in the university paper. Mentioned the evergreen presentation today. We've been trying to reach you for months." I let out a bitter laugh, the sound sharp in the quiet reception area. "I know," I said, my tone icy. 230 calls is hard to miss." My dad stood, his voice gruff, his patience thin. "This has gone on long enough, Camelia. You're being childish." "Childish?" I snapped, the anger I'd held back for months spilling over, my voice low but fierce. "I came home to find my belongings in garbage bags. You sold our house without telling me. You abandoned me. And I'm the childish one." My mom's eyes filled with tears, her voice breaking. "We made a mistake, Camelia. We want to make it right." I shook my head, the disbelief bitter on my tongue. "Now you want to make it right? After a year? After I've rebuilt my life without you? Why now?" Elena stepped forward, her voice soft, pleading. "Just hear them out, Cam. They know they messed up." I turned to her, my gaze hard. "I know about the inheritance," I said, my voice flat, the words a weapon I'd been holding back. "Is that why you're here? Because the money came through?" My dad's face darkened, his voice sharp. "You've always been quick to judge." I met his gaze, unflinching. "And you've always been quick to discard. You knew about my grandmother's estate last February. You kept it from me, then threw me away." My mom gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "You know," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I know everything," I said, my voice steady, the truth a weight I'd carried for days. "The question is, what do you want now?" The reception area wasn't the place for this, so we moved to a nearby cafe, sitting across from each other, the distance between us more than physical. "We were ashamed," my mom said, her coffee untouched, her voice heavy with regret. "The foreclosure, we couldn't keep up with the payments. We couldn't tell you." I kept my voice low, controlled, the anger simmering beneath the surface. "So instead of asking for help, you abandoned me." My dad's voice was gruff, defensive. "We found out about your grandmother's money right after you left for the semester. The lawyers said you'd inherit when you turned 21. We thought if we moved, started over, we could fix things before you found out." I stared at him, the betrayal cutting deeper. "By selling the house and leaving me with nothing?" My mom's voice was a whisper. We panicked. "Your dad thought you'd be better off without our problems." I shook my head, the words hollow, meaningless. "And now?" I asked. "Why the sudden change of heart?" They exchanged glances, the silence heavy between us, before my dad spoke, his voice gruff but softer than before. "The Clean Air Collective," he said, his eyes meeting mine for the first time. "We saw what you've accomplished, Camelia. We realized we'd lost something precious." I let out a bitter laugh, the sound sharp in the quiet cafe. "Your successful daughter," I translated, the words dripping with resentment. "No," my mom insisted, her voice trembling, her eyes pleading. "Our family. Our connection." I studied them, these people who'd shaped my early life, then shattered it. My mom's graying hair, my dad's slumped shoulders, Elena's nervous fidgeting. They looked older, smaller, diminished by the choices they'd made, but I felt no pity, only a quiet strength, a resolve I'd built from the wreckage they'd left behind. "I've built a new life," I said finally, my voice steady, my gaze unwavering. "New connections, people who value me for me, not for what I can give them." My dad's voice was insistent, a plea I didn't want to hear. "We're still your family, Camelia." I met his gaze, my words final, a line in the sand. "Family doesn't put your belongings in garbage bags." I stood, placing enough cash on the table to cover our drinks, my movements deliberate, my heart steady. "I don't need closure," I said, my voice calm, resolute. "I've moved forward. But if you truly want to make amends, start by respecting my boundaries." I walked away, the cafe door closing behind me, a quiet strength settling over me. Not satisfaction, not vindication, but a certainty that I was whole, that I'd faced my abandoners on my own terms and come out stronger. The next morning, the Evergreen Foundation called. Clean Air Collective had been awarded the full $250,000 grant, with an additional $30,000 for operational costs, a victory that felt like a new beginning. That afternoon, a local news outlet contacted me about featuring our work, a spotlight that would bring more families to us, more chances to make a difference. I celebrated with Professor Harper, Clara, and the volunteers at GreenPath, their pride a warmth I'd never felt from my family, a warmth I'd earned through my own hard work, my own resilience. I'm Camelia Torres, 21, from Tacoma, and I've learned what home really means. Not the house I grew up in, but the life I've built, the people who see me, the purpose I've found. My family thought they could erase me, but they only set me free, pushing me to create something bigger, something better. So I want to ask you, what's your story? Have you ever been left behind, forced to rebuild from nothing? Have you found a new family, a new purpose in the ashes of betrayal? Drop a comment below. I'd love to hear from you, to connect over the journeys that have shaped us. Maybe tell me your city too, so we can share in the places that have held our stories. I'm Camelia, 21, from Tacoma, and I've turned my pain into power, my abandonment into advocacy. That empty house broke me, but it also made me, and I wouldn't change a thing. I'm free, I'm me, and I'm just getting started.